And welcome to a special holiday edition, a Christmas Eve edition of Bury Your Bookie. Yes, there is degenerate activity and lots of it coming up over the next couple of days. I'm Jeff DeForrest, and very happy to have you guys along for the ride. Wishing you the happiest of holidays. I'm not necessarily a very religious person. I did as a kid because I believe my father lied to my mother about being Jewish. My mother was very Jewish. She was from a city called Danzig, a free city between Poland and Germany at the time, had to escape the Nazi regime there in the takeover in World War II, got out just in time, thank God. And that turned out to be a very good omen for me as well. But my dad, I don't know that he wanted to concede that my mother unwillingness to marry a non-Jewish person probably just said, hey, you know what? I'm fucking Jewish. And so we celebrated both Christmas and Hanukkah, and we hope you guys are celebrating everything, including a lot of winning tickets, which we hope to generate for you here on Bury Your Bookie. We won't be with you tomorrow or Thursday. We will be back on Friday. Take a look at the college playoff games as we get into the second round and a card of NFL games. It's kind of spread out. There are two big NFL games coming up tomorrow, and very interesting ones, very intriguing ones, as we like to say. I did have the religious epiphany, though, a long time ago, and I figured out exactly the difference between heaven and hell, and especially the meaning of hell. I was in the Jamaica Queens off-track betting parlor. How I got there, well, it was kind of a roundabout story. I used to travel with the University of Miami basketball team, calling their games on the radio for a couple of years when they were in the Big East, which was a little bit inconvenient from a geographical standpoint, but I loved it, being a guy from the Northeast. So we get to New York. We're going to do a game at St. John's Alumni Hall, not Madison Square Garden on this particular occasion, but kind of a dump of a gymnasium that was known at the time as Alumni Hall. They may have renamed it in some way to pay homage to the late, great Lou Carnesecca, who checked out earlier this year. Anyway, I'm looking to kill time on the road. I usually killed it by going to any kind of racing facility, whether it was simulcasting, which what was just coming into vogue, or any place. If I could get to the track, I was going. I've got find a casino. That's where I was heading. Foxwoods was relatively new at the time. And so I tried to hit that from whatever northeastern city I was in, whether it was like Providence, Boston. It didn't matter what kind of drive. I was going to take it from the minute the plane landed, check into the hotel. Sometimes not even that. Just get the rental car and whoosh, straight to a casino. So I'm at this OTB parlor, and they didn't have screens then. They just had when you actually had to listen to a race. You didn't get to watch it, and there was a speaker in the ceiling. Just that was the only speaker, and they would switch around from the different tracks that they were simulcasting. And what was weird was everybody, for some reason, maybe to hear it better, it's like how you turn down the radio when you're lost in your car, and you're thinking, well, this will help me find it. I'll just lower the volume on this radio. Uh, but for whatever reason, people all looked up at the speaker, even though there was no race to see. So I'm standing in this group, and I'm looking around, and I'm thinking, wow, this is the sickest, ugliest, most degenerate-looking bunch of gamblers I've ever seen assembled in any one filthy, I mean, just absolutely laced with all kinds of schmutz, this place. And I truly disgusting room. And the only thing that was good about it was you were able to bet. And I had this religious epiphany. I realized that, geez, this might be purgatory, and hell would be the same room with the same people without the ability to make any wagers. And from that point on, I kind of took like a very casual and cavalier viewpoint towards the whole concept of, well, if you're good, you're going to heaven, and if you're bad, and if you're a bad gambler especially, not only are you going to hell, but you're going to hell broke. Now, we don't want that to happen. And there is what was an annuity on the board today. We're going to get to that. But if you aren't betting today, I tell you what, this place never closes. Bet Online continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform, and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, very popular today. BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch and wager on the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, and college basketball, NHL, UFC, boxing, they have it all. Head to BetOnline today. Don't forget to use the promo code BELIEVE. We want you guys to get that extra capital they're putting out there. That's BLEAV, all caps, as if you were screaming at somebody in a text, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, this used to be an annuity, the Hawaii Bowl. It's always a lot of fun for me, and we've talked about this many times on the program throughout the 6 or so months we've been doing Bury Your Bookie here on NoFilter.net, and very happy to be coming down the stretch run of 2024 and hoping to do big things in 2025, as virtually everybody is. But if you wanted to cash a ticket, you could be in a slump that is so onerous, so hideous, so despicable that you, for the zillionth time, had sworn off gambling and called your mother and told her, "I'll never gamble again, Mom. Can you just front me those 2 times that I need to pay my rent?" This was a guarantee that you were going to cash a ticket. It was like the over in the old NBA All-Star game. And why does Adam Silver have to continue to fuck with the format? Just go back to what it was. A guaranteed over every year. That they scored like 370 points or whatever, 400 points in last year's game. Incredible. Here's your final today. Imagine that. You're calling basketball. You're Johnny Most. Well, you go. The final, the Celtics 216, the Knicks 214. Absurd. He was calling games at a time where if you had 85, 83, that was a monster of an offensive explosion. But it was a guarantee. And the same thing was true before they fucked up the format for the NHL All-Star Game. Regardless of what total they put up, they could put up 25 goals. You're thinking that's absurd. And that was in an era, I don't know, did they make the goals larger or something? Seems like it would be harder to score today with the size of the goalies and the pads and the whole thing. And the goal has not been expanded. It's not like you're trying to kick a ball into a soccer goal, which is the size of a city block, and yet nobody can score. That's a whole nother topic for another day, the abolition of soccer. And maybe we can get that done during the Trump administration. That would be something I would have voted for him if he was in favor of that and banning country music. But anyway, it was always an annuity. These games, you couldn't miss. It was always going to be an over, regardless of the total of goals in the NHL game or the points in the NBA game. And the other game that was on the board that was always like that, for me anyway, was the Hawaii Bowl. But a lot of it was contingent. I don't know that you really needed to be some kind of subversive spy and, be CIA caliber in terms of your ability to extract and get your hands on inside information. Because all you really needed to do was hang out with the two teams or have somebody that was, pay some kid that went to the school that was friendly with the people on the football team and see what the fuck they were doing when they were in Hawaii. Because routinely, one team, and this happens in a lot of bowl games, and maybe even more so today with all the opt-outs and the transfer portal deals, the coaches are gone. I mean, that was happening in the past, but you didn't see player defections like you do today, and it'll be significant, actually, in today's bowl game as well. But one side would routinely be all business. I mean, just eating glass and getting ready as if they were going to go to a motivational speech by Dan Campbell. And the other team, you would see the quarterback was diving off the third story of the hotel room or wherever they were staying in Honolulu, and they were just completely unprepared to do anything except to try to recover from the party, maybe after gargling with massive doses of Xanax to get the buzz off the drugs that they were consuming while they were getting ready, supposedly, for this game. So all you had to do was find out which of the teams was going to come out there. One would have, the coach would even have like a lampshade on his head and some lei that was hanging from his neck awkwardly and wearing a Hawaii shirt, while the other team was all business. Looked like Tom Landry let him out there on the field with that little suit and the hat. And you could make a score all the time because the game would routinely be a blowout with one team, usually the team that was not accustomed to the kind of environment they would experience in Hawaii. You'd have like maybe Rutgers coming from Piscataway, New Jersey, and all of a sudden they're in Oahu surfing, and there are babes in bikinis, and they're tanned, and they're just absolutely gorgeous, and their eyes are popping out of their heads. There's no way. You talk about a distraction. That's a fucking distraction. So if you could determine which team was going to be the team that showed up, and it was apparent on the sidelines, the minute the game, before they even played the anthem, you already knew who was going to win that game. I'm not sure that that's the case coming up in today's game, although there are some story narratives that would lead you to believe that maybe you could find an advantage in trying to pick the side anyway. A close matchup, you have the University of South Florida going against San Jose State. San Jose State has a connection to Hawaii as their coach, Ken Niumatalolo. Ken Niumatalolo is from Hawaii, played high school ball there. I mean, all of his roots are there, still has family there. So this is a homecoming for him. He's a head coach at San Jose State. San Jose State is laying 3 points in this game against South Florida. Now, I can't say that I saw a ton of South Florida football this year, but what I did witness, and this was a while back, was when, and it seems like we're always picking on poor Mario Cristobal, the head coach at the University of Miami, because he's the hometown guy and he's a subject of a lot of conversation here about whether or not he's completely inept and worth the $8 million a year. Is he just a solid recruiter and excellent in the transfer portal? But when it comes time to make a very difficult decision, something that is going to ultimately decide a game, Mario Cristobal is not the guy you want involved in any way, shape, or form in your thought process. So this game with USF that Miami plays earlier in the season, USF is right there. Now we saw any number of times where Mario Cristobal's teams, University of Miami, one of the reasons that you could have easily made a case that they did not belong in the CFP, in spite of the pathetic performance by Indiana against Notre Dame and SMU in their game against Penn State. Still, you had very questionable suspect teams, mid-pack teams at best, sub-mid-pack in terms of their power rankings and their overall display of ability. And one of them was USF, who was very much in their game against the Hurricanes for a half. Now, eventually, and you see this many, many times, some team back in the day when scholarships actually mattered instead of cash, one team would have 60 scholarship players, Division II. The other team would have 110 scholarship players. You'd have to figure that the talent eventually what was going to overcome whatever resistance the upstart team was able to put up. So, yeah, USF wore down in this game. They eventually got blown out. The score not necessarily indicative of how competitive they were early in the game against a team that you would have to figure, well, I don't know, what would be superior to San Jose State. San Jose State, a darling of the spread in non-conference games. 5-0 in non-conference games this year, but unfortunately, terrible as was USF in their conference. They went 1-6 against the spread in their 7 conference games, and so finished up 6-6 overall. Not too much to separate these two teams. You got a receiver for San Jose State who led the nation in receptions, led the nation in receiving yardage, led the nation in touchdown catches. You wouldn't think so. I mean, if I told you, hey, you can pick between San Jose State and Ohio State for who had the top wide receiver in the country in all 3 of those categories, in a million years, I mean, you would bet every dollar that the answer would be Ohio State. And of course, this was Nick Nash of San Jose State accomplished all of those things. Nice little triple crown there for a wide receiver. And he's opted out of the game. So that may have some impact on it also. Too close to call. I don't know. I haven't seen any reports about the behavior of either of the two teams. You would have to think South Florida used to a tropical environment. San Jose State, maybe not as much. Proximity to Hawaii, San Jose State, more likely to have had people who have vacationed there or spent some time there or whatever. University of South Florida, well, I mean, I don't know what the humidity factor is in Hawaii, but it could be nothing like here in the state of Florida, where it's virtually opaque outside when you walk outside in the morning in the summertime because the humidity is that fucking thick. So a little to separate the two teams there. If anybody has any inside information, feel free to pass it along to the people here at nofilter.net and Bury Your Bookie, because I think this game will be decided almost strictly on a behavioral basis. Too little to separate the two. So it's the old cliche, and I hate it, but could it be? Could it boil down to something as simplistic as who wants it more? I'm sorry I said that, people. I really am. That was one I wish I could scratch, but we're on live, so there's not much you can do to take that back. All right, tomorrow, mañana, Christmas Day, and once again, we want everybody to have just a wonderful time. If you're traveling, be careful out there. Friends and family, it's always great. My second favorite holiday, second only to Thanksgiving, and that's because Thanksgiving kicks off the whole holiday season in such a pleasant and inspiring way. I always look forward to that. The meals are essentially the same for me. I don't know about you. It's the usual, a turkey, a ham, a bunch of sides there that you probably should never eat again, even though you take like globs of it home and start eating it 3 in the morning. You wake up there. Let me have some stuffing. I was just thinking about that. So great time of the year. But second favorite holiday and enhanced now because of even more NFL activity. 2 games, both of marquee variety, and it could be deciding factors. It's always interesting because you talk a lot. Most cities are preoccupied with conversations about whether or not their team could make the playoffs. That's certainly the case in South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, where we're from, because 7 and 8. You need a series of miracles for the Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, to get in, but that's what people are talking about. Hey, you know what? If the Colts lose to the Giants and then by some chance end up in a tie with the Bears, then all we would need is the Steelers to lose to Green Bay. I mean, you could drive yourself out of your mind with this stuff. I prefer to just see the season end and then try to figure out where the fuck we are. Are we going to a playoff game? I don't know. How much are tickets? But you have two interesting ones. The Chiefs laying 2.5 on the road against the Steelers on Christmas Day. Now the Chiefs, you would think, would be a bet against an overinflated, an old theory out there, bet against the defending Super Bowl champion the following year in every game against the spread. I'm not sure how that's been holding up of late. Now, this year, it's not like you're getting rich off of that because the Chiefs, surprisingly, in spite of all of their close games and the natural penchant there would be to accord the Chiefs many, many more points in terms of favoritism than they would normally deserve based on their play and sabermetrics and all of this other stuff. The Chiefs are 7-8 against the point spread this year. The Steelers have been a surprise team, although maybe coming back to the pack and being slapped in the face by a dose of reality, because they were having just could you call a black and blue division team Cinderella? It's kind of, an oxymoron, is it not? I mean, how could a Steeler team be a Cinderella team? And yet they were early in the season, winning all kinds of crazy games. Mike Tomlin, literally. You were thinking, who is this guy? Chuck Noll? Unbelievable job by Mike Tomlin. Never having a losing season. All of these years, incredible. And you thought he was just, at first, I hate to say this, but it is no filter, a capitulation to the Rooney Rule by the Roonies themselves. Because if they didn't hire a black head coach, which at the time were there 2 or 3 in the league altogether, including Tomlin, then who the fuck was going to do it? Nobody. It's one of the weakest rules that's ever been instituted in any sport, in any organization, in any line of business. And yet it's proved to be widely and wildly beneficial to the Pittsburgh Steelers because Tomlin wins with bullshit most of the time. Never, he had Roethlisberger in his heyday, and he's had other quarterbacks, but and he's got 2 guys on the team right now that can potentially be valid starters almost anywhere. Fields, I thought he distinguished himself pretty well, but when Russell came in, Russell Wilson, all of a sudden a different team. But are they good enough to beat the Chiefs? The Chiefs have been on the ropes all year long. They look like Chuck Wepner in the 15th round against Muhammad Ali all year long, just staggering around, and somehow, maybe with a little stoop there from the officials who always seem to make some kind of favorable ruling for Andy Reid, the fat man and company. But nonetheless, they sit there at 14-1, still playing for, though. I don't know. Did they already wrap up the number 1 seed? Is that already in the books? Because if it is, not sure how much that changes. But laying 2.5 with the Chiefs against the Steelers, in spite of the Steelers' recent move back to the pack and apparent, at least slight decline in overall play, I'm going to say I'm going to take the Steelers in that one, the home team, to prevail over the Chiefs. Somebody finally beats the Chiefs. So watch that one very closely, people. Chiefs probably win by 35. And then the other game is also a terrific matchup, as you have the Ravens, which we've mentioned this, and this would be some hell of a Christmas gift for my friend Dylan Rossi, who his ticket has been posted on various social media outlets. If the Ravens win the Super Bowl, this guy cashes a 5-component parlay, a $50 wager originally, and the ticket will be worth $480,000. That's legit, $480,000, and it doesn't seem that far fetched. It's amazing. This would encourage people, in spite of the logic that is so stacked up against it, to go ahead and venture out on some of these big ticket parlays, wagering a small amount of money to potentially win a lot. So he combined, and we've mentioned this a few times, he combined the University of Connecticut to win the college basketball championship, Celtics in the NBA, the Stanley Cup champion, which was the longest price there, I think at like 8.5 to 1, Florida Panthers to win the Stanley Cup, all combined to the Dodgers, who early on when this ticket was purchased before the season, were somewhere in the neighborhood of 350 plus 350 to win the World Series. So all of that together added in with the Ravens winning the Super Bowl, which I don't know what the preseason odds were on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl, but they had to be, somewhere between 8 and 12 to 1, would you say? Is that a fair assessment just off the top of my head? So whatever that is, it ratchets up the payoff exponentially. So the $90,000 he collected on $100 for having the first four elements in place becomes $480,000 on a $50 bet if the Ravens win the Super Bowl. So we're watching them very closely. Had their ups and downs. Now big campaign on again that Lamar Jackson is the MVP. Laying 5.5 against the Texans. The Texans, unfortunately, have a tendency to hang like a rat. They're that cheap claimer from Beulah Park that somehow has managed to get at or near the front in the stretch in a very high purse race early on the card at Gulfstream Park. And as you're thinking, wow, I bet this pig, and the horse looms up, they hang like a rat. They just never complete the move. Houston seems to be that team. I don't have statistics in front of me, but I don't need them because they can jump out to leads and look like they're in complete command in the first half of games. And then doesn't it seem like in every game they're involved in, including a couple of weeks ago against Miami, they're just hanging there like a rat, waiting for the other team to do something. Now they've prevailed in a lot of these spots, and the Texans 6-7-2 against the spread. But you would have to think, I mean, there would be a natural tendency to jump on the Ravens in this game, no? But with C.J. Stroud not having, I mean, it's not necessarily sophomore jinx, but not quite having the season he had last year, where he really ignited a spark and made you think, my God, how good is this team? Unbelievable. And C.J. Stroud, of course, was the guy. I mean, you were looking at what? Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud? My God. Now Bryce Young's shown signs of life. At least I'll give it to Carolina. They're competitive. There was no amount of points that you could offer me that would make me be tempted to take Carolina earlier in the year. Now, you pretty much have to take a look at them almost every game out. They got blown out a couple of weeks ago, but other than that, very representative showing. And you're not rooting for some guy to go down in history as the Ryan Leaf. He was the second pick overall. I guess what? Jamarcus Russell, biggest bust of all time, number one quarterback pick. Biggest bust of all time. You don't want Bryce Young to be that. He seems like too nice and humble of a young man. But we'll see. Stroud turned out to be a much better pick. Is it enough to beat the Ravens and Lamar Jackson now that it appears once again, and this has been somewhat on and off, but that they're hot again? So the Ravens 8-6-1 against the point spread, surprisingly having a winning record when they're usually heavily bet. Laying 5.5 against the Texans. Tough call, but all right. So we're going to steer you with the Steelers and the Ravens in these two games, and then just hope we don't end up massively embarrassed. We wish you the best of luck in betting all of these ball games over the weekend. You do have a usual slate of NBA games coming up on Christmas Day, and they really take advantage of this. Did you see this flopping business that was going on last night in the Philadelphia 76ers San Antonio Spurs game where Wembanyama, wow. I mean, he's going against, some tough mofo Drummond who barely even touches the guy. And then after he gets in his face, he gets in Wembanyama's face and says, you're soft, you're soft. Wembanyama pulls a move, and I don't know the name of the referee. It was a female referee, and she must. I don't want to suggest anything perverse, but wow, I mean, she's got to be heavily biased towards Wembanyama. He pushes off of Drummond and falls to the ground, and they throw Drummond out of the game. And I don't know that I've ever seen this before because you can now challenge foul calls. So properly, Nick Nurse, who was going ape, the Philadelphia 76ers coach, he challenges the foul call, and it was like the wrestler coming back after being banned from the arena by the referee and even escorted personally to the locker room by Vince McMahon, somehow coming back and getting involved in the match again. So Drummond, they realized that this was all bullshit with Wembanyama. He just fell to the ground. The referee went and awarded a technical, and threw two technicals, threw Drummond out of the game. And he comes back in. That was just absolutely insane. They will be in action, of course, as the NBA would look to feature this guy and playing a little bit better, even though Pop has been out. Suffered that they called it a mild stroke. I'm not sure that any form of stroke is a good thing to experience. I nearly had one with Northern Illinois yesterday, which was a fortunate bailout for me in the fabled Idaho Potato Bowl, but had to go to overtime to do it. Knicks and the Spurs. Knicks playing some great basketball. All the talk in New York, they tend to get over enthusiastic about their teams. One of their teams, look at the whole Tommy DeVito thing. All of a sudden, you thought this guy was Johnny Unitas, and now you're looking more realistically at a guy that you would be happy for him if he made a practice squad somewhere so he could stay involved in football. Seems like a really good guy. 9 too much delay. Madison Square Garden. Spurs coming in. Kind of an interesting line there, but that one might be just sit down and watch. Mavericks Timberwolves, good matchup. Celtics and the 76ers. 76ers, a brutal disappointment this year. Do they ratchet up some effort against the Boston Celtics, favored by 9 in that game, going to the TD Garden? Might be worth a little bit of a taste, although they've been horrible, right? Philadelphia 76ers all year long, just absolutely pathetic. Almost like the 76ers, that won like 9 games with Kevin Lockery. Warriors-Lakers, a classic matchup out west, two teams that hate each other and maybe on the downslide. And the Nuggets and the Suns. So the NBA doing a great job making your Christmas a bright one. A couple of NFL games. Going to be a whole lot of fun watching these games tomorrow. We wish you all of the best. Thanks so much for tuning in to Bury Your Bookie. We will not be with you tomorrow and Thursday. Back with the professor and some kind of dissection on the college football and basketball slate. A lot of big games coming up, so we'll rejoin you on Friday, and hoping everybody has a happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, enjoy the entire holiday season. We'll see you in a couple of days as we hope that you have nothing but stacks of cash to show us, as we'll join you for the next edition on Friday of Bury Your Bookie.